Luna 4 teaser and livestream just dropped, and what looked like a simple preview actually hints at something far bigger, because we literally see Dottore tearing open the false sky. And at the center of it all is Columbina, who may have even traveled back into the past, but what for? In this video, we're going to break down what the Luna 4 teaser is really telling us, why Columbina traveling to the past matters for the plot, and how all of it sets the stage for the biggest admin level Dottore is the best villain conflict Genshin has ever teased. Oh, and Happy New Year! I know we're less than 3 days into the new year, but I hope it's been a good one for you so far. Just a heads up, we're going to be doing a lot of theorizing in this video, so if you're looking for strictly canon information, be sure to check out my previous Archon Quest Recap videos. We're also apparently going to learn more about the Traveler and their sibling through their new outfits. Because in Genshin, yes, even outfits themselves have lore, so this could quietly reveal important details about the Traveler's past and origins. In the teaser, Paimon says the doctors left the Kuvaki Experimental Design Bureau and headed to some research center up north. This research center is most likely Dottore's actual stronghold in Nod-krai, a location that's been teased since Natlan. Sandrone says that Renée de Petrichor once foretold the fate of the world, and that she used to detect 3 moons but now detects 4. This is one of the most important lines in the entire trailer. The lore alarm bell should be ringing. Something about the world has measurably changed. The key thing to understand is that in Genshin, a moon doesn't always mean a physical object in the sky. Depending on how it's being detected, there are a few possibilities. The first is that a manufactured moon now exists, an artificial lunar proxy created by Dottore. This lines up perfectly with the later dialogue where it's said that if he can only obtain 2 moons, he'll simply create a 3rd himself. That artificial creation could be what Sandrone is now detecting as a 4th. Another possibility is that the 4th moon was always there, hidden from view, and that Columbina is directly responsible for uncovering it, meaning Sandrone is now detecting Columbina's moon. Columbina says, "I used to think a name was nothing more than an alias, but after that night, I will cherish it forever." It's a reference to the Luna 3 quests, but in this world, names aren't just what someone calls you. They're anchors. They're what allows someone in this world to be recognized, remembered, and allowed to even exist. Previous promotional material and this livestream refer to Columbina as the Welkin Moon. Our theory from previous videos is that Columbina isn't meant to return as a descendant of one of the 3 original moons. Instead, she may become the goddess of a 4th moon, perhaps the Welkin Moon. The reason she's been rejected by the world is because she doesn't fully belong to any existing lunar role. Nod-krai might be the key to her permanent return. The land itself is believed to be formed from the remains of a failed or forgotten 4th moon. By binding herself to Nod-krai as its goddess, Columbina gains a true home that Teyvat recognizes. That allows her to stay in the world as a new moon goddess instead of disappearing. I break down this particular theory that Columbina may become the 4th or Welkin Moon in much more detail in my Luna 3 analysis video, so feel free to check that one out while you wait for Luna 4 to come out. Duran says Dottore is probably trying to swallow Nod-krai whole, and later on, Sandrone seems to identify them as Dottore's energy fields. By swallowing Nod-krai, he effectively turns the entire region into a sealed laboratory. He's likely combining techniques he already uses. Dottore is known for building machines that imitate gods, and considering what he could accomplish in Luna 3, a domain expansion seems to be within his means. He might also be exploiting Nod-krai's thin border with the Abyss, or using abyssal energy somehow. No matter which method he's using, the result is the same: a man-made domain in which he can experiment on truly becoming a god. It's the ultimate expression of what the Shade of Space, Asmodee, once warned about in the opening cutscene of the game: the arrogation of mankind, attempting to seize control over the rules that govern the world. Then Sandrone says so he wasn't bluffing, he really built that. Most likely, that could be either a moon proxy device meant to create a 3rd moon, since Dottore apparently only has access to 2, or a generator that sustains these energy fields. But why is Dottore even doing all of this? What is he trying to accomplish? Why does he need the power of the 3 moons? And that leads directly into Dottore's most revealing line in this teaser: "Once I transcend fate, you'll be nothing but fodder for my grand experiment." In Genshin, fate isn't just a character's destiny. It's a system that records people's history, keeps their paths in life on track, and decides what is allowed to happen. To transcend fate means stepping outside that system or gaining the authority to control or edit it. That's why I want to shamelessly market our Dottore is the 5th Descender theory. Only Descenders are known to exist outside Teyvat's fate system, and Dottore seems like he's trying to manufacture the conditions that make a Descender possible. By acquiring or fabricating the power of the 3 moons, life, death, time, space, and reason, tearing a hole through Teyvat's false sky, and declaring the arrival of a new god, he's essentially turning himself into an external, rule-immune variable capable of rewriting reality. In other words, a Descender. Either he's trying to become a Descender or imitate the powers of one for future use. By the way, Rene de Petrichor, the one Sandrone refers to a lot, is the only character so far who theorizes that a being from Teyvat, and not an alien, might be able to become a Descender. When Dottore tears a hole through Teyvat's false sky, we briefly glimpse what appears to be the remains of the real frost moon beyond it. In Luna 4, the story will likely center on Dottore's experiment on transcendence reaching its breaking point, and Columbina returning at the moment his system starts to fail. Dottore completes his setup by fabricating or assembling the powers of the 3 moons, leading to the boss fight we see. It actually kind of reminds me of Fainon from Honkai Star Rail. Columbina's role might not be to overpower Dottore, but rather to counter his lunar authority. As a moon goddess and potentially the emerging 4th moon / Welkin moon, she represents a legitimate lunar presence within Teyvat, something Dottore's artificial system can't fully override. By anchoring herself to nod-krai as its goddess, Columbina gains recognition from the world itself. That recognition is what lets her interfere with Dottore's control over the power of the moons. Her presence destabilizes Dottore's artificial 3rd moon, breaks his control, and allows a traveler to defeat him. This arc probably ends with Columbina no longer needing to leave the world at all. Instead of returning to the moon, she becomes the new goddess of nod-krai, aka the 4th moon within Teyvat. And speaking of Columbina, if you're anything like me, you're probably trying to save every last Primogem to pull for her while still recovering from holiday spending. So before we continue, I want to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Aniba. Aniba makes topping up your favorite games ridiculously easy, and yes, they've got all the Hoyoverse titles including Genshin Impact. Here's how it works. Just search Genshin Impact on Aniba's top-up page, choose the server you play on, and enter your UID. And boom, that's it. No login and no password required. It's quick, simple, and you still get your top-up delivered instantly. And the best part? Aniba's cashback system. You can get 10% back from your top-up. For example, if I buy this Primogem pack, I can go to orders and hit claim, and 10% cashback gets added to my account. Then that balance just sits there ready to use on your next top-up for you to use on future pulls. If you want to use Aniba for your Columbina and future nod-krai pulls, use the link in the description and pinned comment down below. Thank you once again, Aniba, for sponsoring today's video. Now back to the teaser analysis. Wait, remember when the goddess of the Crimson Moon of the past seemed to recite Columbina's future name as if she already knew it? Does that mean Columbina literally went back in time? Not exactly. I don't think this is conventional time travel at all, especially because Genshin rarely treats time as something you can simply move backward through. Instead, the moon gate Columbina fell through might be a space where Teyvat's past, present, and future coexist at once. Because of that, the Crimson Moon doesn't remember Columbina from the future. It recognizes her because Columbina exists outside the normal flow of time. From the moon's perspectives in the moon gate, Columbina's identity isn't bound to a single moment. To them, it might already be fully visible. By going back in the moon gate, Columbina might find herself in a version of the world before lunar rolls, fate, and the false sky were fully decided. This lets her see what went wrong, how the moons were destroyed, why the 4th moon never properly formed, and why she was excluded. This is why her return matters so much in Luna 4. While Dottore is trying to force his way into godhood by creating artificial moons and overriding the world's rules, Columbina comes back with understanding instead of brute force. She knows how lunar authority was meant to work, and that makes her legitimacy something Dottore can't copy. There also appears to be another story unfolding in parallel with the Archon Quest, through the Lantern Rite event story. Fittingly, with 2026 being the year of the horse, we're introduced to Zibai. Zibai is one of the 8 adepts, and according to lore, she was once one of the angels, the same race as Nicole. She is also described as a daughter of Istaroth. Whether that's meant literally or figuratively is something we'll go over in a moment. According to the Frost Moon Scions, Zibai once dwelt on the moon. During the Archon War, she fought alongside the other adepti to purify the god Todo, a tree-like deity that stood before the realm of the dead. At some point after the war, Zibai encountered a young boy in the bamboo forest of Mount Chingsa and told him the story of the 3 moons that perished during the War of Funerary Flame. This story is recorded in Moonlit Bamboo Forest, which exists both as an in-game book and an animated short. In Moonlit Bamboo Forest, the moons are described as daughters of prose and song, sovereign over the night sky. They travel the heavens in a silver carriage, taking turns ruling 3 times a month. If that cycle was ever disrupted, disaster would strike. Because of this imagery, we once theorized that the moon goddesses might be connected to horse symbolism, since a carriage traditionally implies a horse-drawn carriage. Zibai may not be a moon goddess herself, but rather an emissary or attendant, one of the beings that help the moons carry out their duties across the sky. This also helps explain her connection to Istaroth, the god of time. In the hymns of the far north, Istaroth is prayed to for the protection of the 4 moons, suggesting she had oversight or guardianship over the goddesses. Zibai may have been created, appointed, or empowered by Istaroth during a time when the moon goddesses were under the control of the heavenly principles. Notably, Zibai's arrival in the story is depicted with her descending in a carriage, reinforcing this symbolism. There's also quite a poetic tone to her identity. Zibai is associated with the imagery of a white horse, which references the Chinese idiom a white horse passing through a gap, a metaphor for time passing incredibly fast, like how time flies. In that sense, Zibai is a child of time not biologically, but rather symbolically. Regardless of whether it's literally or metaphorically, Zibai's official introduction is directly narrated by Istaroth herself. And it's worth remembering, Venti is also a being deeply associated with Istaroth. Let's take a look into what might be happening in the Lantern Rite story. Neuvillette says the world outside is changing. Perhaps it is wrong for your fate to become entangled with the fate of any one world. This might mean one of 3 things. First, Teyvat may no longer be a closed, protected system. The world outside likely refers to what exists beyond the firmament, outer space, or the same cage she later warns could open. Second, Neuvillette may be cautioning the traveler against anchoring themselves too deeply to Teyvat's timeline and rules. If the system collapses, being too bound to its rules could trap them. The traveler as a descender is an external variable, someone not written at all into the world's fate. Neuvillette might be subtly telling us that once you bind yourself too completely to Teyvat, your identity or status may even disappear. Narratively, this sets up some heavy possibilities. Anyone fully bound to Teyvat and its rules go down with it. The traveler may be forced to choose between preserving this version of the world or preserving their ability to leave it behind and pursue their sibling and travel to other worlds. And at its most extreme, this line might foreshadow a descender scale decision. Remain a descender or accept a binding, a name, a record, a contract that makes you ultimately belong to Teyvat. There's another ominous line we hear. On Lantern Rite, the moon shall go dark. The phenomenon is going to happen again. The word again implies this has happened before. Something about the false sky, the protective barrier around Teyvat, or the system that filters or stabilizes it fails this time. But why? Why is there a hole in the false moon? I guess we'll have to tune in to find out. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much Aniva for sponsoring today's video. I'm your leafy lore keeper Minsleif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to.